Hey guys, this is Chris Edwards for iPokerVIP.net, and today this session is a review of a 4-tabling session I had against one of the best NL50 regs on PokerStars. It was a very aggressive session. I think he knows that I'm a pretty big winner, and I obviously know that he's a pretty big winner. And I'm not too sure if he normally plays like that, but we had a very aggressive dynamic, and hopefully this video will help you guys identify the different thought processes that I have and that you guys should have when playing a regular as opposed to playing a fish. A lot of these spots you'll see that I identify his range as something which would be completely different if I was versing a fish. There's a few more hands this week as opposed to last week where there was only I think 7 or 8. So we probably won't be going into each hand into as much depth because there are a few standard hands, because this is just I think the top 15 or so biggest pots of our session. So yeah, a few hands will be pretty standard. Because this isn't recorded in time type thing, it's sort of only the biggest pots of the session. We definitely can't get a feel for game flow, so some decisions that I make, even as I was going back through them, I thought, why did I do that? But they were probably due to the game flow. He might have been tilting at that point. I know he did tilt really hard at a point there, and I think I even tilted towards the end as well. So yeah, we can't really go into much of the game flow reads, but we can sort of focus on the reads, like player reads, like his tendencies and stuff, which we couldn't do last week because there was obviously a different player every hand. So that's where we'll start anyway, his reads and his tendencies. Here's his HUD for almost 2,000 hands, so this is pretty good sample size. The things that stand out are he's pretty standard pre-flop, except for the fact that he has a really high 4-bet percentage, 18% there. So I was flatting a fair few 4-bets out of position and just hoping to flop anything, just anything remotely decent, and I'd just be shipping it over the top, and he can't really call with much. And also he had a high 3-bet percentage, 19%, so he's a pretty aggro opponent, and also had a massive check raise percentage, check raise the flop. 28% is huge. It should usually be around 10 to 12%, so that's pretty massive. Another read on him is that on flops he tends to just go berserk. He calls shoves really light. He'll call them just with top pair, no kicker, if there's any type of draw on the board, so we'll be looking to fast play our good hands on the flop. Okay, so let's get into it. This is the first hand here. Ace Jack suited, standard raise, he calls. Standard c-bet here. He check raises to $7, standard sizing by him. On this board there's a fair few draws, not too many, but obviously 4-5, 3-4, complete air as well as in his range, and there's a lot of flush draws in his range, and obviously King Jack's in his range, Queen Jack, pocket sixes and pocket twos. But here I'm way ahead of his range, and I'm definitely happy to get this in on the flop here. And he goes ahead and ships, and he ends up having Queen Jack, which is something I don't think he'd be happy to. I don't think he'd play like that against a fish, but I think he knows that there are a few draws there, and I think he's looking for me to hero call him there with something else and just put him on a draw when he check raises that flop. And that's the end of that hand. Here I was really against regs. Sometimes I like to really balance my 3-betting range, because regs know that a balanced 3-betting range is things like King 2 suited and 4-5 suited, but they don't really, a lot of them don't think that people 3-bet sort of mid-strength hands, and I like to do that sometimes just to keep myself completely balanced, which I did here. And the flop comes Ace King 3. I think I probably prefer checking here, but I don't know, because if he raises, he can have anything because he's so aggressive. But I suppose if you check, he can just barrel you off your hand so many times here. So I think a check is good, but a betting is obviously good as well. So I go ahead and bet, and he raises, which I expect him to do with a lot of things here. Obviously a flush, obviously pocket threes, or ace 3 suited. They're the made hands that he can have, but a lot of his range is like the Queen of Hearts and something else, maybe like King Queen with the Queen of Hearts or something like that, or Ace Jack with the Jack of Hearts. No, I don't even expect him to do it with that, but yeah, I think he's pretty draw heavy in this, so I'm obviously going to call and reevaluate the turn. It's not a good one. It's another heart, which means all his flushes got there that were in his range, and he checks back the turn there. So now that tells me he either has something that was like a complete bluff, like 5-6 or something, or like 10-9 or something like that with one heart, and he's just trying to get it to showdown now. Or he has something like he had a really strong made hand on the flop, like ace 3 suited or pocket threes, and that card really scared him. So on this river, I go ahead and turn my hand into a bluff, hoping that he has pocket threes or ace 3 suited, or even something like ace queen, ace jack that he didn't want to 4-bet pre-flop. So I'll go ahead and turn my hand into a bluff here, because I think I can credibly rep like ace queen with the Queen of Hearts, ace jack with the Jack of Hearts, or even something like pocket queens as well with the Queen of Hearts. But he snap called me, and he had 10 jack with the Jack of Hearts, so that's just another thing to note down. He's really aggressive, even in 3-bet pots, not just in standard pots. He's happy to get stacks in. He's a pretty big winner, so he's played these stakes for a while now, so he's really confident at them, and he's happy to really get stacks in pretty light. Here, pocket tens, standard 3-bet. He goes ahead and 4-bets me. Because we're pretty deep here, as you can see, we're about 190 big blinds deep, I think, 180 or something like that before this all happened. So I'm not too happy getting pocket tens in pre-flop, because all that's really going to get called is better or ace king. So if we get this in pre-flop, I think we'll be crushed pretty much all the time, except for when it's ace king. So I just call this out of position, and I'm happy to play a pot with pocket tens out of position. He c-bets, which he'd be doing with all of his range here, even pocket kings, pocket queens, pocket jacks. I think he'd probably check back pocket aces, but yeah, I think we can still be beat here a fair bit. But I go ahead and call, because I think he has a lot of air in his range as well. And he checks back the turn. When he does this, I think he has pocket kings, pocket queens, pockets. I've got pocket tens, or like a weak ace, or just complete air, like a lot of the time here. So I'm probably just going to look to show this one down. So I'm checking just to get to showdown, and hoping that my tens are good here. And he goes ahead and bets here. Now that he does that, I think this is a bad call from myself, not to be results orientated, because he does end up showing the goods. But these low stakes regs, they know to 4-bet the ace, like I say in almost all of my videos. They 4-bet weak aces a lot of the time because they've got that ace blocker, so it's less likely that you have a value hand that you're 3-betting. So I think here he just has a weak ace so many times, and I don't think when he takes this line, I think he's very rarely bluffing. I think he could maybe, but probably not do this with King 9. Probably not, but I think that's probably the only hand I'm beating here. But even then, he probably doesn't play it like that. So I think this is a pretty bad call. If he was bluffing, he'd tend to barrel the turn and then barrel the river all in. Regs just don't seem to be bluffing when they take lines like this. And he does show the second nuts, obviously not including pocket aces, but yeah. So I think when they take that line, I just don't think he's bluffing very often, so I think that's a pretty bad call there on my behalf. On to the next hand, and we're just 100 big blinds deep. He goes ahead and calls my 3-bet. I have ace-jack. Standard c-bet on a pretty low flop that should be hard to connect with his defending, his flooding my 3-betting range. He calls. And the turn is the Jack of Diamonds. This is a great card to barrel because I'd be barreling this with so much of my range that isn't like Ace-Jack or Pocket Queens, Pocket Kings, Pocket Aces, because it just brings so many draws. Like I'd be barreling this card with any 2 diamonds, 9-10 type hand. I'd be barreling it with like all my air, like King 2 of hearts or something like that, because it's a good card to barrel because I can rep so many things on the river. I can shove the river on so many different cards. So I think here, and he knows this because he's pretty good. So I'm definitely doing this for value, and we almost always have the best hand here. And he calls. And the river is a 6. I see a lot of sort of newish players are checking now, hoping to get to showdown because obviously the flush got there, and obviously there are a few 6s in his range, although I think there's more small pocket pairs and 8s in his range than 6s. But that is a mistake because all you're going to be doing there is getting him to check back his 8 or his pocket 7s, and he's going to be shoving his flushes and his trips. So you shove yourself, you will get called by a 6 and a flush, but also you'll get him to look you up. What's the word here? You get him to hero call you with like pocket 7s or pocket 9s here some of the time. So there's no point in checking here because you're going to have to call his shove anyway. You may as well shove yourself and hopefully get some hero calls from him from worse. So it's a pretty big mistake not to shove there. But in saying that, he rivered the 6 here. So, but still, obviously, we played that hand optimally. But that's just poker. That's just how it happens sometimes. Here, ace-6 suited. He 3-bets. I flat ace-6 suited. In position, looking to play some flops in position against this guy. He 3-bets 15%, 19%. And ace-6 suited is way ahead of his range here. He goes ahead and c-bets. When he c-bets this, I just, he'd be doing that with almost his entire range. So ace high is good a lot of the time here. And the turn is a 3. So just a blank. I'm not sure, because this hand looks really bad on my behalf, but it was probably some game flow read that I had. He was probably tilting because at one point he was tilting really, really hard, and this was probably it. So obviously not folding the 3, but not obviously, but I think he just has a lot of draws on this board once he barrels that thing. I know the turn doesn't bring it brings no draws, but he has so many draws in his range when he's just barreling like this. It's either ace jack or queens, kings, or aces, but probably not aces because I've got the ace blocker. But either that or a draw. So once this river comes a 5 and he shoves, obviously in a vacuum I shouldn't call here because my hand looks like what it is. It looks like this or a weak jack or pocket sixes type hand, and a good reg knows that I'm never going to fold this. But against a fish, I think a call here is good, but I think against a reg, this is a very loose call. I put it down to he was tilting or something like that. Hopefully he was, otherwise that's probably not a good call. He does show the pocket kings. This hand's an interesting one. This is sort of a level on level type thinking hand. So we'll get straight into it and I'll explain it on the flop. The flop comes Queen 7-3 Rainbow, which is almost the typical dry flop. Queen 7-2 is the typical dry flop, but most NL50 regs will be attacking this flop because they know that it's really hard to hit this flop, and they get really curious when people fight back to these flops, especially when they know that like I'm pretty good and they know that I can think about flop textures and things like that. So I go ahead and c-bet, and he check raises me. So now what do I make of his range? His range is either like king queen, queen jack, queen 10, where he's trying to level me into a hero call, or pocket sevens or pocket threes pretty much, or maybe just some wacky 3-7 or queen 3 suited, but I think he'd 3-bet that pre-flop. So yeah, he's got a really narrow value range here. So I think his right now my thought process on the flop is his range is pretty bluff heavy at the moment. So what can I do to make myself look like I'm even more bluffy here? And obviously if I call, it looks like I've got a really strong hand because he knows that that's exactly what people do on these flops when they have a clue, because they know it's just so hard to have anything. So I go ahead and 3-bet this flop really small just to make it look extra bluffy, because like I keep saying, so many regs will make this play with air. They will 3-bet a flop like this with air because they just know that it's so hard to hit. And I can't remember who it was, but there was a theory that on a board like this, when someone 3-bets, they almost always have nothing. But here, and most regs know that, so that's why I'm going on top, another level on top of that, to try to just completely mess with this guy's mind. So when he flats this, he never has air here now, so we can pretty much get rid of all his air here now. And he has a lot of pocket threes and pocket sevens in his range here, and obviously weak queens as well. And the turn is a 3, so that means it's really unlikely that he had pocket threes. So all he can really have here is like pocket sevens. That's the only thing that really beats me, and obviously quads, but they're unlikely. And and I've got queen 7, so his pocket sevens are just as unlikely as pocket threes, because there's only one combination of each of those hands because I'm holding one of the sevens and there's 2 threes out there. So I think he almost always has a weak queen here. So I go ahead and bet small to leave a little bit of room to shove the river, because he'll have 30 behind once he calls this. And I'd expect him to look me up here with like even pocket 4s or pocket 5s or anything, any ace high, anything here, because this line that I took is just so so bluffy. And he does look me up, and he just had the Queen 9, so that one worked out really well, and I was pretty proud of that play. I think if I don't 3-bet the flop, he probably gets off really light there. Like, I probably wouldn't get that much money out of him. So yeah, when you're battling rigs, you have to take these lines that they don't. You have to think one level above them, and hopefully you can get inside their head and get on their level of thinking, and then make the most out of that. Here I 3-bet a weak ace again, and like I said before before we started playing these hands, I was flatting any sort of decent hand out of position because he 4-bets so often. And when I get this flop, I'm obviously check raising. I check raise instead of just jamming. I check raise really small to try to make it look like I've got like a really strong hand. But he just refuses to let go of anything in these bigger pots, and I call because the odds are good, and he just has pocket 9s. Obviously, I don't fault him for his play there because the board is pretty draw heavy, but yeah, I don't know. I think that's a profitable play in the long run. Well, it definitely is. Pocket 4s. He 3-bets. I was talking to a friend recently on Skype about what percentage does an opponent have to 3-bet for you to 4-bet shove these small pocket pairs to make it profitable. Me or him didn't do the math because we're too lazy, but if any of you guys could do the math, that'd be awesome. But I'd say it's somewhere around 16% or 15%, where it becomes profitable for you to shove these small pocket pairs, and this guy's 3-betting 19%, so it's just massively profitable for me to shove the small pocket pair here. Obviously not going to shove anything more than like 150 big blinds, probably even less than that. But yeah, I end up sucking out on him here. He had the pocket queens, but I think you guys will be probably seeing that line a fair bit. So yeah, try to incorporate that into your game, but make sure you're not only doing it with small pocket pairs. Try to mix in like an ace king in there as well, or ace queen, just to make sure that your range when you do that is a little bit balanced at least. Here, 3-bet the pocket 10s, and I get a great flop. Obviously c-betting because we want to keep that range balanced. I could be doing this with ace king, king queen, ace jack, complete air. But this flop here is one that really tends to hit his defending range. Whenever you see a 10 and a jack on the board once you've 3-bet, those types of flops, or 10-9, really hit their defending range pretty hard. And he check raises to 18, which is pretty large, which tells me he's got like a drawing hand pretty much a lot of the time here. So I put him in a hand like king queen or something like that. Sometimes he can have ace jack, but it's unlikely. But obviously he's not going to fold to any shove because in these larger pots he tends to just love getting it all in on the flop. So I go ahead and get it all in with him, and he has 8-9 suited, but he sucks out on the river, so that's one each. That hand was pretty standard. So on to the next hand, ace-5 off suit. He 3-bets me, and against this guy, I think I was hesitant to 4-bet a bit because I just knew he was so aggro and that he'd get it in really light. So I was just playing a lot of pots in position against this guy. So this is far from standard, flatting ace-5 off suit, but I was confident that I could definitely outplay him post flop. And this hand is very similar to the other hand where he showed pocket kings, and I had I think I had ace-6 suited where I tried to hero call him. This is another mistake here. It's pretty much the exact same hand. I'll just quickly run through it. Call, bet, call, bet, call, bet, call. And when he takes this line, he's hardly ever bluffing. A fish here, this is a good play, but like I said, with the other hand, he had pocket kings again. He's just hardly ever bluffing on a board like that. Like I said before as well, though, hopefully he was tilting or something to make this play half decent. Pocket jacks here. We are just over 100 big blinds deep, so obviously stoked to get this in pre-flop. So I'm going to 4-bet it and get him to shove over the top with a lot of weak things. And he ended up having ace-10, which is that's pretty weird. Usually someone's cutoff is like ace-queen for 5-bet jamming there, but like I said, this bloke just loves getting it all in on the flop or pre-flop, so I'm not going to be 4-betting light against this guy very often. And this hand's super standard. Just absolutely thrilled getting ace-king in pre-flop, but he had pocket queens and he flopped a set. Really standard, that hand. This one here is pretty interesting. This is another one of those level on level type thinking things. You got to get inside his head and think one level above. These suited kings, I really love them. They are pretty loose to call pre-flop, but to call a 3-bet pre-flop, but I want to make my calling range really wide pre-flop on the button when he 3-bets. Like I can have ace-5 off, I can have aces, I can have pretty much I can have the nuts or like medium strength hands or really bad hands, but usually mid strength hands to the nuts are what I'll be flatting in position. So I like my play pre-flop here. I flop basically the nuts and he c-bets here. This board is something that can like never hit my defending range, so usually you'll see a lot of people just slow play this, but I've been raising a lot of flops and we had a really aggressive dynamic, and he's not going to be going anywhere with even ace high here when I raise this flop, because it just looks like I have ace 4 suited or ace 2 suited type hand here like all the time, or something like 6-7 suited or something like that. Just so many gutters and air in my range here that I expect him to hero call me almost always. And here I try to make it look even more bluffy, and I check back the turn, and then usually I would have barreled the turn against a fish, hoping to get called by an overpair, but I checked it back here and make it look even more bluffy, and then I go ahead and overbet ship the river just to make it look really, really wacky and get inside his head and think I'd never be doing this type of line with a 5 here. And he had king high on the flop, so he was looking me up really light. Like I said, he'll expect his ace high type hands, king high, to be good there when I raise that flop a lot of the time. I think he would have called me even if he didn't spike the 10 on the river. Yeah, so that's another cool hand. Ace queen off here. He 3-bets me, and I'm happy to get ace queen in pre-flop against a guy 3-betting 19%. He goes ahead and flats my 4-bet. When he does this, I think he has a hand like king queen a lot of the time, ace jack or ace 10 a lot of the time, that just doesn't want to get it in because we're pretty deep here. Maybe something like pocket jacks or pocket 10s as well, because we're we're not that deep, we're only about 130 big blinds deep. But okay, so once he calls this, I think there's a lot of air in his range because he could be tilting, and obviously like just medium strength hands like king queen or ace jack or something like that. And obviously I flop top pair, top kicker. It's a great flop for me. And when he leads out here, I almost always have the best hand. It's just he has hands like king 10 here so much, and 10 jack, spades, just so many things. I'm just ahead of his range pretty much always here. So I'm stoked to get this in because he just donks the pot, and he pretty much never has a better hand than me here. But to my disgust and shock, he ended up showing Queen 9, which is just a horrible play for him from him, because he should expect me to c-bet that flop all the time with all my air. And when he donks the pot, it just, like, I'm just going to be folding ace king there. I'm probably going to be folding like pocket eights or something that I 4-bet pre-flop. So it's just a really bad play by him, but that's probably 1 in a million times he has top 2 pair there. You'll never see that. Hardly ever see that. I'll go ahead and flat 10 king. King 10 out of position, standard. Really standard hand, check raise, and it gets all in. And like I said, consistent with the comments that he loves to get it in on the flop, all he has is ace queen here. On such a board that smacks my defending range, I definitely wouldn't be getting that in with ace queen if I was him. Here I go ahead and 3-bet 8-9 suited. He flats. Good flop to c-bet this one, although it does. Sorry about that, keeps happening. It does smack his range pretty hard, but I can rep the king, I can rep the jack pretty credibly. Here, when the queen comes, I think barreling this, it doesn't really accomplish much, but we can rep a few things. We can represent ace jack, pocket kings, pocket queens, and a thing like ace 10 or something like 10-9 suited or something like that. So obviously, sorry, and I bet they're a little bit larger to set up a river shove, but it actually still wasn't quite large enough. And when this queen comes, I think I might have been tilted here. He pretty much has a boat almost always here because he has a hand like queen 10 when he calls this turn, or he just has like a weak jack that he's slow playing, or obviously the nuts like king jack, which he does end up having. So I think I should really be giving up here, but I go ahead and bet, and he snap calls me, and he has king jack. Good play by him. He definitely shouldn't be shoving there, and he played the hand perfectly. Just slow playing the nuts there because hoping that I improve somehow, but obviously not enough to beat his hand. Here, really standard hand. A flop, bottom set, and a check raise. On such a draw heavy board, it looks like a real fishy check raise here, so I'm happy to check raise here because I'll be doing it with a lot of air and my draws as well. And he 3-bets, I 4-bet small just to make it look even more bluffy, and he shoves, and he ends up having 7-5, so he just loves getting it in on the flop. Pretty standard, that one, other than the small 4-bet that I put in. Here was definitely tilting because he ended up taking a fair few buy-ins back off of me, so I was tilting at one point, but I think I was still up on him because he started running really, really good. I go ahead with the 5-bet with 8 jack here, and he 6-bets me, and because the odds are just so good, it's 16 into a $72 pot. I'm not folding even 7-2 here, so I go ahead and call and hope I flop something, and I just shove. and of course he has to have pocket kings or pocket aces when he does this, but I end up sucking out on him. That's just really bad play by myself. I don't know if it was a game flow thing. Maybe I felt like he was bluffing, and that's why I put in the 5 bet, but I should be doing it with a hand with a little bit more equity than Jack 8 there. Pocket 7s, keeping with the theme, just flatting the mid-strength hands in position and playing pots that way. Here, pocket 7s is good a lot of the time here because he's c-betting pretty much all of his range. So I go ahead and call, and I turn a boat, and he goes ahead and barrels again. And because we're pretty deep here, and I want to get stacks in by the river, I have to raise here. He can have a flush a lot of the time here, and he can have ace-jack a lot of the time as well. So definitely the only option here is to raise, or just shove the river after he barrels that. But I think raising here is definitely way better, especially against a guy like this who loves to get in. Get chips in with cards still to come. There's some people that will never get money in when they're like on the river because they just love getting it in on the turn or flop because they know that they still have outs type of thing. This guy's definitely one of those players. So I'll go ahead and raise, and then just shove the river, which is pretty standard, and hopefully you can call me with a flush or something like that. But he goes ahead and calls with 10 queen. Which is really, really bad by him because that 7 pretty much hits all of my range there. The 7 of clubs, 8-9 gets there. The flush gets there. I just pretty much don't have much. Nothing really missed here. King Queen got there in the end, so that's just a really horrible call by him. When he called there, I expected him to have like at least, like probably minimum Queen Jack. I think he should still fold like a weak Jack there. He should still even probably fold King Jack, but yeah, 10 Queen is just really bad there. Here he just flats out of position and we get a great flop. So obviously c-betting, and he check raises. I will be happy getting this in on the flop, but we're kind of deep here, so I just flat the check raise here, and I spike the flush. He goes ahead and bets 1150, which he would with all of his range here, like 9-10, King 10. Obviously his flushes, and he'd probably be checking his 2 pairs now, probably like Queen 6 suited or Queen Jack, but he could be barreling theirs as well. So I'm still way ahead of his range here. Obviously a lot of air in his range as well, but because we're so deep here again, and we want to get stacks in by the river, we have to raise this turn, and he just flats it. And obviously we're shipping this for value off of 2 pairs, and now the straight got there. He can have a hand like King 10 with the King of Diamonds, and hands like that as well, 10-9 with the 2 pair as well, or something like, you know, Ace Jack with the Ace of Diamonds, or just something really wacky like that. And he calls, but he ends up showing the nuts, which he played pretty well. And just flatting my raise on the turn there is definitely good, because raising from him, re-raising me on the turn there, he just gets rid of so much of my air there. So he played the hand pretty well, and we both played the hand pretty much optimally, and obviously I got a little bit unlucky there. King Jack, standard defend. He goes ahead and c-bet 7 into 18, and I was just on pure monkey tilt at this stage because I think it was after that Queen 4, and I just go ahead and call and hopefully spike something, but I don't. That's just terrible. But the King High there is good a lot of the time. In saying that, he does have a lot of draws in his range there, but still terrible play. Hopefully you guys can learn a thing or two from these bad players. That tilting can cost you a lot in the long run, and the more you're playing your A game, the more money you'll make in the long run. Like I said in my first video, tilting is a massive part of the game. This is a really interesting hand, and my friend that I was speaking to about it couldn't believe that I timed out here, and pretty much I timed down to like 1 second and ended up calling, but I'll show you guys anyway. I go ahead and get tricky with a check raise here, because this board is so draw heavy that I'll be doing this with so many things like 10 jack, 10 queen, so many diamonds, and obviously things like 9-8 and ace-8 and ace-9 as well. But I do this to get, like I said, a level on level type thinking thing, because all I'm really repping here for value is like ace-8 or ace-9 or 9-8, so not very much. And I go ahead and flat his 3-bet. He 3-bets me, so I think he has a lot of draws in his range here. Obviously 10 jack got there, and that's just about it. 5-6 if you decided to do that, like 5-6 of diamonds or something. And I make 2 pairs, so obviously I'm going nowhere now. He can be doing this with 9-8, but unlikely. But there's just so much air in his range, because it's such a draw heavy board, that I have to call here. And the river is a 7 here, and I check, and he goes ahead and shoves. And this is where I time down to like 1 second, and my friend just couldn't believe that I was even thinking about a fold here. But I was going to post this hand on 2+2. I just don't think like this deep I think he'd be checking back 10 jack here, but this is a really close call. I know you're probably thinking like, what the hell, you've got a full house, but I just think he has pocket 9s, pocket 8s, or aces here, like so much. But the only thing that made me call in the end was the fact that 10 jack is a massive part of his range, and he can be doing this with 10 jack. And that's what convinced me to call here. But pretty interesting hand, this one. Be interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this one. So go ahead and hit me up with what you guys think. He does end up showing pocket 9s, and he wrote in chat something like, 6 slow roll or something like that, and I said, yeah, it wasn't much of a slow roll, was actually considering folding. But yeah, he thought I slow rolled him. But yeah, I just thought he had it. Something just told me that he had 9s this time. 9s or 8s or aces. So on to the next hand, pocket jacks. I just flat the 4-bet from him out of position, because we're too deep here to get this in pre-flop. And this is the last hand of the video. The flop is a pretty good one for jacks, but obviously he does 3-bet those weak aces a lot of the time, so I think he has a lot of weak aces in his range here, so the ace is never good to come up on the flop. He goes ahead and c-bets. I'm not going anywhere. I've got pocket jacks, and the turn brings a gut shot, straight draw, and a flush draw to me. And when he barrels this turn here, I just think he has so many draws in his range. He can have things like 8-9, 7-8, things like King Queen with the King of Spades, things like 7 King with a King of Spades and things like that. So I'm not folding here. I've obviously got a fair bit of equity against a lot of his range as well. And the river is an ace, and he checks. I check, and he goes ahead and shoves. Here, I'm not too sure if I beat more than I don't beat type thing. He obviously can have a flush. I don't think he'll have a straight. I don't think he'd do this with a straight, because there's a full house out there and a flush. But I do see him doing this with I don't see him doing this with ace king or something like that, unless it was the flush, ace king of spades, or I think this is pretty much a boat, a good flush, or air. So I'll go ahead and look him up. And he shows King 6 of spades, so he did have it. And as you guys will notice, I lost the 4 biggest pots of the session, but I think that call there is profitable. Against this guy, definitely, anyway, because he's just so aggro. But I almost timed out on that hand as well, and that's another interesting hand that I've been meaning to talk to with friends and probably should get around to soon. Yeah, but that's the end of the session. As you can see, everyone makes except Phil Galfond, but everyone makes mistakes in a session, and reviewing them like this is really important to identify those mistakes for future improvement and things like that. As you could see, I acknowledged a lot of my mistakes. That's a key part to improving. Don't just get stubborn and say you played the hand correctly. Always be analysing your play and looking for spots where you think you made mistakes, and look to fix them up in the future. Yeah, so hopefully this has helped you guys out anyway, and should help you guys battle regs a bit more often and have some success against them. Next week, I think I might try a live video. That's where I'll be playing and talking at the exact same time. Yeah, so that should be pretty interesting. I've heard it's pretty hard to do, but hopefully I can get some good footage, and it'll really give you guys an insight into my exact thought processes like as I'm playing. So yeah, tune in for that next week, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This has been Chris Edwards for iPokerVIP.net, and I'll see you guys next time.